All right. Yes. Welcome to today's episode of the Growth Podcast. I got my good buddy, sales machine, Greg Gomez, CEO and founder of faststartmarketing.com. Welcome to the Growth Podcast, buddy. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you, man. How are you, Aaron?
I'm awesome, man. I'm awesome. Thanks so much for being here. I've been looking up to you and your sales skills for a while now, so it's a pleasure to have you here on the show, bud.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Yeah, totally. It's awesome. So, man, let's just jump right in. For the people who don't know you as well as I do, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
I'm a Libra. I like long walks on the beach. I like the wind in my hair. And my name is Greg Gomez III. I'm founder and CEO of several companies, Fast Start Marketer being the most recent. Been online coaching home business owners, small business owners, direct sales, marketing, lead generation since 2003. Had got my start way back when as a lowly telemarketer. My silly aside story I always tell folks is I got started in network marketing. I got tricked into network marketing. I thought it was a job. Went to try to sell somebody. Did a high pressure close because that's what I was taught. Got this hugely uncomfortable feeling, and I swore off sales. I said, I'll never do sales again, man. That's the worst. Like, why would anybody ever want to do that? And then I started getting red letters from bills that needed to get paid. So of course I became a telemarketer here in Arizona because I hate sales, right? Did the appointment setting there, did some phone work, proved to be good at it. I would prospect people, get them to a certain point on a script, then I'd hand it over to a closer and they would close the deal and I'd make $5 per sale. It's nice. Nobody was available at one point. Said, okay, I'm just going to read the script because I didn't want to lose the sale. Closed the sale. Guy said, thank you. And I just leaned back in my chair and this kind of euphoria just washed all over me. Second greatest sensation I'd ever experienced, man. It was good. So I'm like, all right, this feels pretty good, man. And so I was hooked after that. And, but I saw a lot of bad salesmanship, like the real manipulative car salespeople were probably the typical, let me go check with my supervisor. I'll be right back. See what I can work out. And they're laughing at you in the back, right? About this idiot. We're going to get them at a $600 payment. Yeah. And they don't understand what they're looking for. So I saw that and I vowed I wanted to learn how to do sales ethically and without being, a pushy, over the top, terrible person.
Yeah.
And I started really paying attention to the psychology of what makes people tick. Like if I say this, they do that. And I was at the time studying martial arts. I studied for about 10 years. And I was very much into, if I move here, they move there in my opponent when I'm sparring. So I focused on the sales side of stuff to say, hey, I noticed the similarities. If I move here, they move there, with pretty consistent. And I learned that from there, if I really applied getting to the truth of what a prospect actually wants, makes a huge difference in the communication. Once you get enough trust to get the truth, you can then guide people to a better quality of life. And I always wanted to make sure I was, at a certain point in my age, I woke up and said, okay, I'm ethically responsible for the things that I'm promoting. How am I and what am I aligning myself with that is bettering people, not just taking from them? Because you can make money doing whatever you want. You can sell and make a ton of money promoting anything you'd like. And if that's the truth, why not promote stuff that you feel 100% in alignment with? So started it, and years later ran phone rooms, made over 1 million soliciting phone calls myself, was always the #1 sales rep in anything I did, et cetera, all the usual accolades that go along with I'm the best and I yada, that kind of stuff. I can close. I've done all right with it. And better than that, I'm actually really good at helping people find and reveal what's their challenge and their truths are. So
and that's really what closing is. Yeah.
It is, at the end of the day. I think it's really building a relationship with people to the point where they trust you enough to be honest with you. I've had people tell me stuff they don't tell their doctors, they don't tell their spouses, they don't tell their attorneys while they're going through bankruptcy and stuff. They're telling me where all the secret stuff is, and it's just the first conversation we're having over the phone. And there's a responsibility that comes with that. You got to honor that and be respectful of that, and help people, guide them with that to making a decision to take action for themselves.
Yeah, totally.
It's my belief. That's where I come from anyways.
Yeah, we're on the same page there, 100%. It's fascinating how much people open up on a first call when you're getting into emotional digging, let's say. Yeah. It's crazy. So take us back just a little ways there. You're rocking and rolling in a phone room. And let's say, for the listener out there who might not fully understand the jargon we're using and they don't know sales and things like this.
Sure.
What was some of the challenges you faced early on when you first started your sales career?
Honestly, the biggest thing my biggest obstacle was myself. I have a student I just was working with here, a client of ours who we're working with. He's doing phenomenally well now. In the beginning, he really struggled, and he said it best: "Is it was just a mindset that I believed I could close, and then he started closing.
Mm.
Like he was prospecting and getting people to a certain point, but just couldn't get them over the hump. He took a break for a bit. Um, saw one of my videos that kind of kicked him in the tail a little bit about motivation and the truth about salesmanship and kind of the Glenn Ross approach to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he wound up changing his mindset and started closing. And for me, for the longest time, I worked as an appointment setter for the longest time, and my biggest concern was I don't want to be a salesperson. My image of what sales was limited my ability to help people make a change. And at the end of the day, it was when I realized, oh, selling isn't about trying to manipulate or cajole people to do something I want. Selling is really about helping people have the confidence to take a step in a direction they know they need to take. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So for me, the biggest roadblock was myself. And for most folks that I find in selling or getting started in selling, that's a big group of people that I work with are new salespeople that haven't done it before. Is their first off their understanding of what sales actually, what they think it is, and then them believing that they're capable of doing it and doing it in an ethical, good way. So that was the first roadblock. The next thing then, when you go from I can't or I don't believe so, the biggest thing after that was ego. Because then when you start closing, you get really good at it. My goodness, open the door for me. You need me to give me that piece of gum. I'll show you how to chew it, right? It's one of my favorite lines. Terrible, terrible ego. Oh my gosh. And that took me to a point where I built a multi-million-dollar business, and my ego was so inflated at that point that I thought, I can turn anything to gold. I can make anything. Give me that piece of coal. I'll show you how to do it. I'm Superman. I'll crush it into a diamond, right? And
You're an
I,
alchemist.
I got myself into a point where I put myself in this business situation where I just picture this. I was in like this 1,800 square foot office,
Wow.
phones, desks, all the admin office spaces, everything to the nines, right? Gorgeous, gorgeous phone room. I'm in a corner office by myself in this entire building, closing, okay? Struggling to close people into these bigger transactions, 30, 40, $50,000 sales transactions. And I was doing it. And every time I made money, I lost $15,000. So
Hmm.
every month I was either losing between 30,000 to minimum I was losing was about $15,000, even when I was closing at peak performance, and I wouldn't let it go because somehow I was going to make it go. I filed bankruptcy. That led to bankruptcy. And that
Wow.
led me to humble myself and say, okay, uh, you're not as cool as you think you are. No matter how good you are at a thing, there's still fundamental rules of business that you have to account for. And that's when I kind of humbled myself and course corrected, and been good since. Been kind of managing it ever since. So lack
Yeah.
of energy, and then too much ego. Not enough ego, and then too much ego. Those are the two biggest killers I found.
Ah, interesting. So yeah, lack of energy, lack of ego, really, and then too much ego, right? You're on the two opposite ends of the polarity there, right?
Right.
And now
Yeah.
you found the equilibrium and you're balanced now, and you can
Yeah, and
survive
when I've
better.
got kids now, so if ever my head gets out of check, I tell a joke, they don't laugh, and I remember you're not as cool as you think you are.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I hear you. You always hear stories of people who find quick success with anything really, but we can stick with, let's say, the online space. If they're affiliate marketers or maybe they're salespeople or something, and all of a sudden they have like their first 10K month or their first 10K day, right? Or they get into six figures, and the ego kicks in, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden there's a self-sabotage pattern. There's a self-destruct mode that kicks in.
Yeah.
um, I find personally, it happens to everybody. It happens to me. It happens to everybody around me. But when I see it externally in people, I I find that it is a self-sabotage block of worthiness.
Mhm.
Whereas, then all of a sudden, you have what you didn't think you could have, and you can't handle the fact that you were the one who did it, and you just are in
Right.
disbelief with yourself, and that explodes your ego, right?
Right.
So if the worthiness factor is high already, if you believe you can do this before you achieve it, and then you achieve it, your subconscious mind is expecting it.
Mhm.
so maybe the self-sabotage won't kick in as hard. What do you think about that?
I think I think there's a lot of truth to that. It also depends on the individual and the experiences they've had too, because the opposite's true. Because if you take somebody who like one of the Trump kids, for example,
Mm.
If anybody doesn't know, you're watching this abroad. We have this president named Donald Trump, and he's got some kids,
Oh yeah.
and they were raised in a millionaire, environment, right? And I have no doubt that any one of them, if they were to have their stuff stripped from them, they would go out and find success somehow, some way, whether that's being a celebrity, whether that's bringing value or not. However they do it, they'd get themselves back to that millionaire style lifestyle. And I say that's because that's their barometer for success.
Mm.
And what I find very interesting is when people are 10% above or below, they freak out and they kind of sabotage it, or they work harder. So if they're 10% below where they feel they are or they need to be, they'll go grind. That's when hustle mode kicks in, and then they'll
Yeah.
go generate that extra revenue. But when they're over 10% of that, they'll have a tendency to self-sabotage. And that's where the ego, for a lot of folks, they get it, they're seeing it, they're experiencing it, and then they do things that just completely undermines it. I had a gal that we trained in a phone room, and she was just absolutely one of the best salespeople I've ever trained in my life, that I ever had a chance to work with. And I gave her one thing. I gave her an attitude. So you have this attitude for this deal, you're going to close really well. She
Mm.
went nuts. She took that, ran with it, was making $3,000 to $5,000 a week, had never made that kind of money before, started smoking crack.
Oh,
And it was, yeah,
what?
yeah.
That's weird.
She'd come in, she'd functionally work for a bit, and then she'd go do a binge for a week or two and just go crack out. So she couldn't adjust to that level of success because of her self-worthiness. It was a lack of ego, not enough confidence
Mm.
in the truth of herself, taking care of herself, to enjoy what she was building, because she could have gone on to go produce millions. Who knows? Maybe she did after I didn't connect with her. I hope she did, but after we lost contact. But all that time that I was with her, it was very fascinating to see. And she was kind of the one that opened my eyes to that. And then I started seeing how other people reacted to it. They'd buy new cars, they'd buy stuff they really couldn't afford. They, go get married or have another kid or do something that wasn't necessarily planned. They'd go to like Vegas and blow a bunch of money or whatever, at least here in the States, or they'd go take a trip or do something. They do something that just sabotages that. I did it too. I
Mm.
first big check, let's party. Next check, nothing. Couldn't pay the bills. My wife's like, oh, okay, that's enough. You give me that check. From now on, I'll manage it. And
Yeah.
yeah, that'll help. Again, get married. That'll put you in check. At least where I come from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if I want our finances to be done the smartest way possible, right? If that's
Mhm.
the thing that we want in our family, definitely pass it to the wife. You know,
Or
I
somebody, and it's not just always the wife. Sometimes it's a husband. Just there's always a balance.
yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
once said, if you guys are exactly the same in a relationship, one of you is not necessary. And I always thought that was very wise.
Oh, that
So
is.
that's why it's a good explanation of why opposites attract, because it's kind of a survival mechanism. If you're the partier and go, friendly, gregarious type of person, and then you've got somebody that's a little more serious and constant and structured, they balance each other out. One
Mm.
has more fun because of the other, but the other, the friendly fun one gets a little more structure, which is needed, or else they implode. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
counterbalance, however you find that in your life.
Yeah, spot on. Spot on. Shout out to my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To all the
It's,
wives out there, we appreciate you.
yeah, we appreciate you.
Behind every great man is a woman that makes him look 10 times better than he actually is.
Yeah, it's so true. Hey, the older I get, the more I realize that,
Yeah.
that's,
It's
it's crazy.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely true. The support and the love, and then the encouragement you get
Yeah.
from a life partner who actually has your best interest in heart. There's two different types of relationships really that I see. There's the kind that support each other and the kind that sort of compete against each other.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and I mean, I've been in both. I'm sure most people listening have,
Yeah.
and you can drastically tell the difference. I'm grateful to have my wife the way
Yeah.
she is now. She's the most supportive person I know, for
Yeah.
my journey, which is amazing. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your current business direction.
Sure.
I've been following you for a while and taking in your content and learning a ton about sales from you and faststartmarketer.com, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. How did that all come about? How did that business sort of blossom?
So I don't know if you know who Joe Polish is. Do you know Joe Polish?
It rings a
Dan
bell,
Kennedy.
actually. Yeah,
You know
I know
Dan
Dan.
Kennedy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan Kennedy has like all these exponents, John Carlton and all these other guys. Joe Polish is one of his top students, and Joe
Mm.
runs a consulting firm. He does Genius Network. Shout out to Joe and plug for Joe. I'm not an affiliate of his, so I don't get any compensation for it, but Joe's a badass. But I was running a phone room, and found out the owner was basically stealing from people as I got promoted to run the entire organization. Gave him an ultimatum: fix it. I'm taking a 2-week vacation. I need a break. Fix it or I'm leaving. And long story short, I came back, wouldn't fix it. I walked. So I'd been running a phone room forever, made that guy millions and millions of dollars, and was driving away from a huge paycheck. And I called my wife and said, "Hey, I just quit." And she's like, "Okay, we'll figure out what's next when you get home."
Yeah.
Like, okay. So I answered this ad in the paper. I said, I'm not going to prejudge anything. I'm just gonna phone jockey for a bit. I'm just gonna get back on the phone, sell for a bit, and go from there. So I get this one ad that I never would have answered, but I call up. The guy's like, "Yeah, come on down. We're interviewing folks." This guy's a rock star to carpet cleaners. Well, what does that mean? And so he's just come down and we'll interview you. And we'll share with you what it is. And then I met this guy Joe Polish. So everybody has their niche in the marketing space, right? Like I cater to home business owners, small business owners, medium sized businesses now.
Mm.
But it's a big priority of that was like network marketers. We concentrated on for a number of years because that's where I came from.
Mm.
And this guy Joe with a name like Joe Polish is like, of course he's a carpet cleaner. Like, come on, man, that's got to be engineered. There's no way that's real.
Polish. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, it's his real name. So I get in there and I see these guys are doing direct response marketing and they're doing copywriting. And it dawned on me as I was going through this process that they do in print what I do with words. And that just like, bam. And
Mm.
I forgot to preface this little foreshadowing. I said a prayer. I'm a praying kind of guy. So I said a prayer, said, higher power, whatever you guys want to label it today, what crazy kids are into nowadays.
The
So I don't
universe,
know what
bro. The
else,
universe.
universe,
Yeah.
Allah, id, or for our atheist friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do we want to? I'm missing something. I bombed this business. I need something. I don't know what it is. Can you direct me to where I need to go? I said I won't judge. Just you put me on my path where I need to be. And sure enough, I landed in this spot. And I'm like, why did you bring me here? Just listen to the dude first, right? Okay. And then I realized what direct response marketing was. I'm like, oh crap, these guys put in print what I have to do in person, and they magnify their ability to sell that way. And that blew my mind. I'd never even seen or heard anything like it.
Yeah.
So I went in there, started selling, and I outwrote everybody else in the room combined because I bought in. I was like, oh, I get it. This is awesome. And as I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh my God, do you not realize what you have? You get to do this, 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 and this. And he's already written it for you. So it's already sales done for you. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Well, I bought something and I used it. It didn't work. Oh my God, show me what you did. And I look at it and I started coaching them like, you messed up this, this, and this. You got to handwrite the letters. You can't bulk mail it. You have to stamp them, lick them and stamp them and send them. They've got to be done this specific way. Send those out. Try it again. I'll follow up in a week. Do 500 letters this week. You're going to get it done. I'm going to get it. Okay, great. You do that. I'm going to follow up with you next week. We'll go from there. Okay. Oh my gosh, I wrote so much business. Great. Now you need to buy this next thing. Okay, I'm in. Here's my credit card. Let's go. Right.
Mm.
And I started building this list of clientele within his group that I just call them and they buy. Medium-sized story now. I sold a ton of stuff with him, made him so much money there. I outwrote everybody else combined. They wound up letting everybody go, and I was pretty much the only one there. And he was waltzing in people and meeting people. I had no idea. I got a chance to meet Dan Kennedy. I got a chance to meet Chet Holmes. I got a chance to meet Eben Pagan. I just met all these other big online marketers. I never met Frank Kern through that process, and I had no idea who they were. I'm just like, I'm closing. You guys leave me alone. I'm busy. They would chuckle and they'd leave. So Joe's like, hey, what do you want? I said, I really want to learn how to do this stuff. He's like, okay, what you guys are doing here, I want to know. So Joe has this huge build this room. It's like 30 by 20. It's massive. And it's just lined with bookshelves, and all of them are direct marketing courses that he's gone through and devoured all of them. He's like, go ahead. This is my library. You're welcome to it. Enjoy yourself. Let me know. And there's like old stuff that you would never see anywhere. It's like an archive of some of the best direct response marketing stuff. And every day I'm just going through it, just everything you could possibly imagine. It was like Disneyland for marketers. It was great.
Perfect.
So I spent about a year and a half just devouring all the stuff there, wound up leaving. And a buddy of mine was like, hey, we're doing this thing for home business owners. You should come check it out. And I'd followed him into several different things before. I was a little hesitant. Got started with it and called my first lead. He's like, here, just trust me. I'm going to send you some leads. Call these leads, and here's the script. Just do it. I'm like, okay. So I'm in another phone room, and I'm like, man, it was BizOp, and I was like, I hate selling BizOp. I don't want to do BizOp. So I left that. All right, I make one call on these leads, and the lady buys like a $400 package right there on the spot, like in less than 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. So what they were doing was they were using the internet. They were using Google to generate leads.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how to do the stuff offline. I'm like, you know what? I think I want to go take a stab at the online stuff. So that's when I started with Google, started working with them for a little bit, and then realized, okay, I need to go do my own thing. And sure enough, several different business iterations, but our most recent and best branded one now is Fast Start Marketer. And we specialize in helping get leads, sales conversion, and then scalability in people's businesses. So that's the entire birthing story of my business for all those people that cared.
No, that's a beauty, man. It's always super interesting to hear the journey that someone successful like yourself, who has an amazing online presence and providing tons of value to people. It's interesting to hear the story, the birthing story, because for a few reasons. Personally, I love hearing the struggles and the hardships and things that people go through to get where they are, because it makes it more attainable for myself to hear and the listeners and everyone to hear, to understand it just didn't land in your lap with a silver spoon. You didn't just all of a sudden wake up with this amazing business.
Yeah.
It took time, it took effort, it took structure and discipline to get there. So it's always nice to hear the backstories, super important. And the other thing is just people are on the path in different places, right?
Yeah.
And just hearing that story just now, I instantly was like, oh, okay, I can see where I am on that path. You know what I mean? And it gives you a bit of a roadmap. It might be a different style of walking, but you can see sort of the top of the mountain. You go, okay, I got you. So that's interesting. Yeah, cool. So now you're doing it all online. The content that really attracted me to you is obviously your sales, right? Your closing stuff. You're always talking about the closing in general, and that's my big passion, is sales and psychology around sales and stuff. So do you mind getting into a little bit of sales
I'd love
stuff here?
I always tell folks, everybody has, as an online marketer, you have like 4 or 5 different mastery skill sets. You got to get good at driving traffic, creating video, yada yada yada. But there's one thing that like is your like, oh, that's my pièce de resistance. So that's the crown jewel of what you can do: selling and closing, prospecting, objection handling. Like those 5 things are my main thing that I help people with, and it's easy for me to do. It's like the easiest thing to do should be the thing you're paid the most for, right? So that's why I always tell folks, like, if it's super easy for you to do, great, then you should be, because for other folks that's the hardest thing for them to do, and they love to charge for it. But yeah, let's fire away, man. What do you want to know? Put me in, coach. Let's rock.
I love it. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, just sales and closing in general, I'd love to, I guess I'll start with what would you tell a student, someone who you're coaching, or someone who might not understand the psychology of closing from a macro? What would you tell that person? Because there's a ton of confusion there,
We started the conversation with it. I think
Yeah.
the biggest challenge is people have a misconception as to what sales is. So I usually start with, hey, what do you think sales is? Like, you tell me what that means to you. And it's typically somewhere around getting people to buy my stuff, or other words for stuff, buy my things or whatever. And
You can
I
swear
look at
here
it
if you
as,
want to.
yeah, okay. Wasn't sure if we had kids at home. So it's just buy my shit, right? That's really what it comes down to. Is at the end of the day, that's the only plug that matters. The challenge with that is that that's coming from a perspective of, I want you to buy what I'm trying to sell. And I found that's a very difficult place to sell from. For me, it's easier to figure out, hey, what do you want to buy? And then I just get in your way and give it to you from the thing that you're looking to buy. So if I figure out what a person's looking to buy first versus what I want to sell, that completely flips the entire dynamic of the psychology of a person, so that they're not pressuring, they're now interviewing. Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yeah, 100%. Love it.
So, and then starting there, it's like people say, like, how do I close? Like we if you haven't seen the movie Glenn Ross, I'm not getting paid another fee for this, but I've been talking a lot about it lately. It's one of the first movies that I saw. There was 2 things. There was a good thing in the attitude of closing, of like, this is what it takes to be a successful salesperson. The other bad side of it was it's terribly over the top, degrading to the salespeople that it's a dog eat dog world. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to not have that. It was like a buffet line. I want these things, but I don't really want, that stuff over there. And in seeing that and how it motivated me to get going and have this mind shift of, I can do it. I have the right attitude to go close. I started looking around and seeing, okay, so why don't people close? Why don't people sell? Why can't they? What's their big challenge? And it was that big focus in the whole space. I think that's probably the biggest problem in the sales coaching industry as a whole, is it's talking about, here's what I want to sell versus, hey, what does your prospect want to buy?
Yeah.
And when we start from there, it completely shifts the dynamic, shifts the conversation, it shifts the questions we ask. I'm a very Socratic based salesperson, so I ask a lot of questions. I have a 6-question survey process that basically figures out what prospects are looking for specifically. At the end of the day, it's, what do you want? Why do you want it? What are you willing to exchange for it? I mean, those are the 3 things that I look to find in a prospecting thing first. And the other thing I kind of brace people for is, any feedback you get from a prospect, even a hang up, somehow you created that. So where did I create that? It's like those old, remember the old, I don't know if you remember these, Aaron, old pick-a-path books. Remember those?
Yeah.
You'd read
Yeah.
to a certain page and you get to,
Yeah.
if you want to go left, you go page 52. If you want to go right, you go page 39. And so you pick which page you want, and then you didn't like that one, so you go back and you choose again, right? Sales is the same way. If I say something and you react in a certain way, how did I say it? What was it that I said that caused it? It's not just what I said, but how I said it, when I said it, that caused that path to happen. So I strongly encourage people to record, especially if I'm coaching them, record your calls legally, and then bring them back so we can evaluate them. I got to throw that in, that little asterisk down here.
Yeah.
Views expressed by Greg Gomez are not necessarily those of Aaron, any of his affiliates, associates. You get yourself in trouble. It's not my fault. It's for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
But that way we can listen and see, they're focused at, my challenge is, this person didn't buy because of this reason. And almost 9 times out of 10, that's not the real reason. The real reason they didn't buy was somewhere they caused up in the beginning of the conversation. And it is usually rooted in skepticism, is the biggest objection causer. And then inability, like, I don't have the finances and I'm embarrassed about that, so I'm going to lie to you and tell you I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Or I need to think about it, or I need to talk to my spouse, or all the other manifestations of it. Yeah. So that's kind of the baseline of sales.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Yeah. A lot of times, I also tell guys, if you lose them at some point during the call and it's just gone, you really need to take a look at your rapport.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's rapport. If you break rapport at some point, you've lost it. It doesn't matter how badly they want to buy what you're selling. If you broke rapport somehow,
that makes a huge difference. It makes it a lot more difficult, for sure. I have seen, so I've got one concept that I tell folks, is there's no 0% and there's no 100% in sales. And what I mean by that is, there's nobody ever that's 100% going to buy. It's an impossibility. I don't care what they say. I don't care how they prefaced it. I don't care what form they filled out. I don't care what funnel they've come through. There's nothing ever that says that person's 100% going to buy without fault. And the same is true. There's never an absolute 0% chance this person's not going to buy. There's always a 1% chance they can buy. There's always a 1% chance they cannot buy. Does that make sense? You with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, with that in mind, I've made a sizable amount of money making an offer and trying to close a person that I'm like, there is no friggin' way this person's going to buy. They have given me crap since the beginning of the call. They've not followed any of my command statements. They haven't written anything down. They've done nothing, been combative since the jump of the call. You know what, Aaron? I think this is going to be a good deal for you, man. I appreciate all your hesitations and concerns. Let's just get this done. Go get your credit card, man. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Hold on. And I'm falling on my chair. He's a 4, 3, 2. And I'm like, holy crap, I don't even have a pen or a piece of paper ready. And I've got to write this credit card number down. And on the opposite's true. I've had people like, oh my God, this is amazing. So when I get started, does it do this? And when do I get my things? And okay, great. And which coach do I get? Or when I get the product and I do these things with it, all the buying says, yeah, absolutely. And when you do this, it's going to do this and this. Does that make sense? Even better, it's going to do yada, yada. Fantastic. Good. Yeah, this sounds a great fit for you. How do you want to get started today? Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover? What do you want to use? Oh, I don't have any money, or I'm not buying today.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, where did that, right? Like, how do we take a left turn here?
Yeah.
And so what I found is if my expectation is you're not going to buy, and I don't make an offer or I don't make a close because of my expectation, I lost a good portion of money I could have earned. On the same note, if I get my expectations to the point where this person's going to buy, this person's going to buy, I'm already spending the money in my head.
Yeah.
That just makes me frustrated and disappointed to where it impacts my next call or my next conversation, to the point of I'm moving from desperation or anger, or I carry that emotion with me to the next sale. And that's dangerous, because then I could be shooting a sale that could be made in the face had I not taken that energy from the first one into the second one. So
Yeah.
I hear you, rapport is a big deal, but take a shot anyways, man. You never know what you're
Yeah.
going to get.
I hear you. Yeah, completely. It's interesting. The more experience I get on calls, the more I'm understanding the importance of energy. It's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
If you're doing, say, 100 outbound, and say, 10 of them pick up and you're setting appointments or whatever. And let's say you have like 5 to 7 to 8 inbound booked a day, right? And say you're closing at like 20 to 30%.
Good numbers.
Yeah. These are my numbers currently.
Good.
So I'm just using my numbers.
That's a good number. So
Yeah.
hypothetically, let's say this guy exists somewhere in the
hypothetically, my exact situation right today.
What do you say when they
Yeah, this is very self-serving. I understand that, but I'm going for it.
It's a good example. It's a good example.
So say you're in that situation, which I'm in.
Okay.
And so you say obviously if you're closing 20 to 30, that means obviously you're losing the rest, right? How do you work with your energy in this sort of a capacity?
So it depends on the time. So there's a thing we measure in phone teams, which is called talk time. So how much time am I actually on the phone with people? And so people, a big misconception people have is I made 100 dials, I should get X sales. And the challenge with that is there's a lot of that goes on in between the dials versus the sale ratio. Okay, so if I make 100 dials, how many contacts am I making? And actually, it's funny you should bring this up, Aaron. I'm going to shoot a video about this here in just a minute for my next live.
Perfect.
But we're going to talk about ratios and numbers. So if I make 100 dials, what are my contact rates? And what's a contact? A contact is a name number match. So if I'm calling for Aaron and I get Aaron, that's a contact. If I'm calling for Aaron and I get his lovely wife, that's not a contact. It validates that the information's right. It's correct info, so I'll call it back, but that's not a contact, okay? So then out of those contacts, there's 3 things in a call that have to happen. There's the intro, like here's who I am, this is why I'm calling, the purpose for my call, and this is where I'm from, right? Legalese, at least here in the States. And we're trying to figure out, just to establish, do you know who I am? Do you know what this is in reference to? And if it's a cold call and they don't know that, then I want to quickly get to my second thing, which is my benefit statement, which is the reason for my call. I specialize in helping people achieve XYZ. I'm specialized in helping, people that are living in Rome, specializing in building an online presence with their podcast, how to get more reach and to double their viewership. Would that help you? I came across your podcast. Would that help you? That's an anchor. It's a benefit statement. Would that help you? They say, yes, great. The next thing then is the engagement, and this is the important part. Do I get to the engagement of the call, which is the discovery phase? Great. I'll tell you what, grab a pen and piece of paper, you gap them. I want to ask you a few questions, make sure this is something that would actually benefit you. Let me know when you're ready, okay? They get the pen and paper. Okay, I got it, good. All right, first off, and this is where I go into my Socratic process. Now, this spot is where you get all your objections. This is where you should uncover all of the issues. If you do a good enough job in prospecting, you don't run into issues in the closing side of stuff. You should be able to determine, again, the 3 things. What do they want? Why do they want it? What are they willing to exchange for? What other solutions have they tried? What do they like about them? What didn't they like, et cetera? There's a bunch of questions that you can ask around that should feel organic. and asking about a situation. Tell me more about that. Like, why is that important? Where did that come from? Why do you believe that? Have you had experiences with other folks doing that within the past? How did that work out for you? So I always say there's boxes that people have in their brain that they put experiences in, good and bad, are usually clumped together. So we got to get those boxes out and tell me more about this. We open it up and we deconstruct what's in that box. So we can say, okay, so these are the things you want, but you had these negative things associated with it. So you think that this thing, this bad thing, or this good thing has to come wrapped in this bad thing. And it's actually, you can separate the two. That's different than what we're talking about here. So when you unpack that, now it forces them psychologically to say, okay, I'm reframing everything that I understood about this thing, and I'm getting educated into the possibility of it. Now, I'm not closing now. I'm just separating the good from the bad and saying, so this is what you want. It sounds like you wanted this. You didn't want these things for sure. And even better, if you could do it without this negative thing you didn't anticipate over here. You're starting to try to find solutions, but all the other challenges you're facing are here. So if you could do X without Y, you're saying Z is something is that worth Z? And they say, yeah, actually, that would be. Okay, great. Here's what we're going to do next. Now we move them to the next step. So this is a lot to go into your question, which is, I'm getting this. How do I manage my energy? Look at you now. Just empowering yourself with understanding, oh, I was starting here and measuring here. Bro, there's like 5, 6 different things in this first part that we have to measure first before we can start to do and even worry about this over here. Because the energy drain comes from lack of results.
Yeah.
The energy charge, when we close a deal, man, what does that do to our energy, right?
It's awesome.
Through the roof, right?
Yeah.
So we're charged up. The best, side note, best time to call a prospect that you've been avoiding calling and following up with is right after you close a sale. Best time to get it to call a potential closing opportunity is right after a close. Go get a close, get that energy, go call another one, man. Go, you're hot, go get them. Because you're going to collect a decision. It doesn't matter. Even if you balance out, that's fine. I still got this one. I can lean on that. Let's move on to the next prospecting set. But at least I collected a decision. And that's really the big thing. I'm not trying to get a sale. I'm collecting decisions, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go, only reason I'm avoiding it is because I don't want to hear the no. Go get the no now. It's fine. And your confidence will usually win that sometimes too. Anyways, I digress. Back to this point, energy. How do I keep my energy up? Several different little tricks like that to help you measure it, and then you'll know, how are my engagements, how are my contacts? Because if so I'd ask this person, this hypothetical person, are we dialing leads that we've generated online, or are we cold calling? And the person would say,
generated online in a funnel via ads.
Okay, so we're experimenting with something right now. We've predominantly moved people to just buyer only files. So we'd go sell something online and then we call the buyers, right?
Yeah.
Back in my day when I was a young pup, one of the things I used to do on Google is I'd go run a lead generation campaign. We wouldn't sell anything. It would just be straight lead gen.
Yeah.
But we'd have a secondary opt-in after the first opt-in. For all you technical nerds out there, you guys can know what we're talking about here. And that secondary opt-in was after they consumed a piece of content. So it's just general opt-in, big benefit. Here's what you're going to get. Fantastic. They'd opt in. And then we'd have a free report or a video or a training or something, right? And then we'd have another opt-in at the bottom of that, which says call request, like request a call to talk to somebody right now. I found 20% of those folks that opted in requested a call, right? And doing all of our stats and running all the numbers we ever did, that 20% typically netted about 50% of the sales that the other 80% would yield.
Yeah.
So it's still worth it to go talk to the other 80%, but that 20% is really the hard and heavy, right?
Yeah.
So now, understanding that, it sounds like you have a similar situation. You have generic opt-ins, and then you have some people that do some stuff, and then they're a little better quality. Is that like inbound kind of thing versus that, or?
No, the inbound is requested a call on a scheduled time.
Okay.
Super hot.
So that's the inbound, right? So that's similar to what I would say. And the reason I'm differentiating this, because in phone rooms, you actually have live call-in leads. So there's, you have cold leads or you have targeted leads, lead generated stuff that has no established contact. You have people that actually have requested a call, and then you have live inbound, like, holy crap, I got a postcard. I want to talk to somebody now.
Oh, wow.
And So those are the people that are the highest responsive, or at least they say they are. I didn't necessarily think they were. I felt it was the middle ones.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. I'll tell you another time. I used to outright those guys calling old stuff on the stuff they couldn't close. They hated it. It was funny.
Oh, that's funny.
And then the mid-tier stuff was about where I found is a good quality lead set, because they're showing enough interest, they've got enough education, they're hot now, and you can follow up with them. You're being proactive by reaching out to them, not waiting for them to reach out to you. So
Yeah.
I found that's about the sweet spot to get the money. So energy could be, I dial 10 cold, I dial 5 appointments or whatever it is. I dial cold in between appointments and stack them that way. That way I'm kind of giving myself a boost. But for me, I don't treat them any different if they're a call in versus, or is call scheduled or a call request versus somebody that is just a cold lead. I just know I have to warm them up a bit more to get to that benefit statement. Would that help you? And if they say yes, then we go from there. Another thing for me as an info marketer, if they've seen my content and they've consumed some of my content, even if it's videos or other stuff, prior to me reaching out to them or to my team reaching out to them, the engagement rate's way higher. They're way better prospects because they're eating, man. They're consuming your stuff. That makes a big difference. So
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. What's your opinion on, there's so much there. There's so much there. First of all, as soon as you get a sale and then moving out and getting right back into it, it's crazy how that momentum works, right? It's it's your energy. I feel like, and I'm pretty sure it's exactly what you're saying. When you make a sale, obviously you're feeling good and you're feeling confident and excellent. You go out to the next one, you have even less attachment to the result, which reflects positively in your energy. You're not coming across as a needy salesman because you're not.
100%.
You literally just made $1,000 and you're like, well, whatever, bro, do you want it or not? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they can feel it and they're like, well, he's not needy and shit. Okay, actually, yeah, I do. Yeah. And I find that they stack up. Like if I look at my call list, I'll see like, it'll be like, a couple days with nothing. And then all of a sudden it'll be green, 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 green. And then it's like a wave. It looks like a wave. Is that right? Does that sound about right?
That's 100% accurate. Here's another little hack. If you are recording your calls, which I suggest all people do, especially closing calls, for legal purposes, make sure it's legal. But for backup purposes as well, like certain provinces and cities and states, you got to adhere to the rules. You said this, you said that. It's good to cover your butt, man. Just have some type of either signed document that says this is what we're delivering, this is what you're getting, so there's no misunderstandings. We would do verification calls where people call them up and very plainly say, you're getting this, 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 and this. You're giving us this, this, and this. Here's your guarantees. Here's your non-guarantees, whatever it is. Here's how you have to consume. And then they agree, and we have a recording of it. But the other benefit to recording your calls is keep a stack of your wins. Keep a file of some of the best stuff you've closed. Like, man, I was on point. I sounded like I was on fire there. That way, when you are in a slump, because like you said, we're like this, right? If you lay it, like I'm looking down the sheet and good, not good, let's lay it down. Really what it is this, right? It's a wave. So when you're at your lowest and you got to get that energy up, go listen to some of your good closes. Have them, instead of listening to music and the next Mastodon album, we want to listen to some of our sales calls to get ourselves pepped and primed. It's like warming up for getting ready, is psyched up to go do it. So you can hear yourself at pitch perfect performance, PPP, and you have that energy kind of flowing through you. So maybe it's not an actual sell, but you have that energy kind of coming across. That's the second best thing.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I record all my calls, every single one. I don't listen to them as much as I should.
It's hard to listen to. See, that's the big thing, is like, oh God, I sound like crap here. The other thing you do is listening to it a second time, you really tune your ears to what's being said. Because a lot of times you can get sales in spite of what you were doing. It doesn't necessarily, you got the sale like that. Okay. If anybody's going to work with me, all right, and you ever come to me and say, but I got the sale, I literally will slap you in the mouth. It's generally mostly men, because I'm not here to add a boy you and pat you on your head and say, congratulations, you got a sale. Great job, kiddo. I'm going to look for where you screwed up, where you almost cost yourself a sale and you got the sale in spite of yourself. So you have a sequence of best practices. That's my thing, right? It's not about, did you make the shot? My thing is was your form correct? Did you execute properly? And as a result, can we repeat that process? Because if we do that, we're creating bigger opportunities to close more frequently. And
Mm.
over time, that's the big thing, because didn't catch you this time, but next time it might trip you up. And so you have to be preparing for that every single time. So it's like, again, martial arts, sloppy technique might win you a fight every now and then. You might get lucky with a haymaker. You're not going to win the
Mm.
championship that way, man. It's going to get
Mm.
your clock cleaned by somebody who can see what they're doing. And people are professional buyers. As professional as we are salespeople now, the non-buyer has evolved dramatically. But guess what? They're still spending money. They're not spending it with us who are practicing old school bad strategy. They're looking for those salespeople that can set themselves apart and create a better experience for them, and know that, hey, I've got only so much money I can invest in my life, and that's why I have it. The skeptical people have money. That's why they're skeptical. The
Yeah.
people that aren't skeptical don't have a lot of money. They're usually facing financial challenges because they're so willy-nilly with it. So if
Mm.
you can't overcome those issues and really get trust from folks to give you that money, my best prospects are always the ones that, man, I never do this. I never do this. Well, that's why we're so good. That's why this is such a great thing for you. You've never done it before because you're waiting for us. Here we are. Let's roll.
Yeah, right. That's totally right. Yeah, that's totally right. The non-skeptical people, they're blowing money on everything because they're not skeptical.
They're not
Yeah,
skeptical.
yeah. So okay, you get a skeptical person on the call, right?
Uh-huh.
And you take them through and say you're getting. I mean, you mentioned earlier you're handling your objections early on.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of putting out the fires before they get lit. Let's say. With your line of questioning at the beginning and stuff. But say you get through towards the end and someone's hesitant, and they're throwing up smoke screens at you.
Sure.
It sounds like you're skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go when someone sounds skeptical? How do you get over that?
So the skepticism part is a two-part truth get. For me, so I have so let me back up. There's 5 parts to a sales presentation or sales process: prospecting, the actual presentation, Q&A, objection handling, and closing. I don't get objections until I go for the close. Typically, for the first time, you might get some in the Q&A kind of part, but they're
Mm.
not questions typically, or they're not objections. They're typically questions. So that's first part. Second part is, not everything is an objection. There's buying questions, there's objections, and there's obstacles. Okay,
Mm.
buying questions. When I get this thing, how do I use it? When it comes out to me, what am I supposed to do with this thing? So how quickly can I expect to see results? Like, those are all buying questions. Those are good things, right?
Yeah.
The mistake I see most salespeople making is they're trying to handle an object or a buying question as if it's an objection. I'm certainly glad you asked that, Mrs. Johnson. You see, today as part of our promotion, we're blah 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 blah. No.
Mm.
Show them how it's going to impact them in their lives. It's a great question, Aaron. Part of what's going to happen is you're going to receive this. It'll get in the mail there. You're going to want to immediately get it. First thing you're going to do is you're going to have access to a group that we're going to help support you, whatever your extra deliverable is. So you're going to open it up, message me directly on Facebook. That way we can make sure you're in the group and you have all the tools you need. And here's an extra one: you're answering a question. Even better, one thing we hadn't disclosed yet: once you're actually in the group, you're going to get assigned a personal, coach or a group coach that's actually going to walk you through the implementation of that process throughout this. So they're your, what's the word? They're your not entourage, concierge. That's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. I didn't
Yeah.
pay my English bill this morning, apparently. They'll be your concierge through this process. So as you're going through it, they're always there to help you. Does that make sense? Oh yeah, okay, great. So now I'm answering the question, but even better, and I give them a bonus on top of that, right? That's how you build momentum and energy for a prospect's excitement about a thing. So
Mm.
that's how you handle a buying question. An obstacle is, Aaron, I would love to do this, but I can't because fill in the blank. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a no, that's an obstacle, right?
Mm.
So a mistake people make there is they'll go in and say, all right, so, I get it. And, hey, I completely get it, but, how about we do this? And they think that it's skepticism, and it may be, and they're just using that as an excuse, but you have to isolate that, and you have to set it aside and isolate it to make sure that there's no other blockage to the path. So think of it this
Mm.
way: I'm here, I want to get to where you are. I'm here, I want to get to here, but there's this obstacle in the way. Money, let's say, is a typical one.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't because I can't afford it. Oh, buyers know. Oh, I have no money. Oh, so they do that, and we as salespeople are supposed to say, oh, they didn't have any money, so we shouldn't sell to them.
BS.
Not even true. Okay. So let's say that it is the money. Okay, great. Set that aside for a minute. Or, there's a whole process I go through. Hey, Aaron, I completely hear you. This is not, this is a very powerful program and it's priced accordingly for the impact it can make for you. Obviously it's not the least expensive thing out there because of the value that it brings.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, set the finances aside. Let's just assume for a minute that the money is not an issue. Okay. Is this something you want, man? I mean, is this actually something you want to do?
Hmm.
That makes sense. And they say, "Oh yeah, no, absolutely, oh no, always, oh no, absolutely. If I weren't a money, then I would." Aaron, man, don't tell me yes just because I'm on the phone with you. I mean it. Set the money aside. If I can show you a way to get this fixed right now financially, is this something you really want to do starting today? Because I have a couple ways to help you get this done. Are you that committed?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I am. It's just that it really is just a financial thing. Okay, so if we fix the money, you're saying you're in starting now. Dude, yeah, how are you going to do that? Typically, they'll say, well, how would you do that? Hey, okay, we'll figure that out. I'm not sure. We have a couple of different options, but if we can get it done, are you saying you're ready to get started today? And they
Mm-hmm.
say, yeah, I am. Okay, great. That second time is the important one. Now we close for money.
Yeah.
Okay. You just do one. It's a one-legged person. I tying up one leg. Okay, well, he can still walk. You got to tie up both legs so they can't run away, right?
Yeah.
Terrible analogy, awful analogy, but it's the truth.
Makes sense.
Okay, so that's obstacle. An
It's good.
objection, we say all of that so we can get to this. An objection is actually, hey man, yeah, I need to think about this, or I need to take some time to get this done. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to talk to all these other ones. Those are all
Yeah.
rooted in skepticism. My thing is, hey, I'm totally fine to do that. You can take as much time as you like. It's not mandatory you do this. I always remove the buying pressure. It's not mandatory you do this, man. Hey, if this is something you actually just don't want to do, Aaron, that's totally fine. I would rather know now this is something you don't want to do versus something you're saying that, you want to think about and then, you never take my call ever again in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So is it really that it's something you need to think about, or is it, because to me, it sounds like you're just a little bit skeptical. Is that a fair statement? And they come back and say, well, yeah, kind of, and they're dipping their toe of being honest. Is
Yeah.
that really what it is, man? So the sigh is the big thing. When they sigh, you're getting truth typically after that. All right. Yeah, man. I mean, I get all these offers in the mail all the time. I just don't know if this is going to work. Now, skepticism does not necessarily mean 100% that they're skeptical of you. That's another big mistake. People start coming in and saying, oh, well, we do this. We have this guarantee and it's us, us, us. It could be them, especially if you're selling coaching and high ticket stuff. You know how many people buy stuff and never use it? And then they know that I believe in you. You're fantastic. I just know I'm not going to do it. And instead of subscribing to another weight loss program that I'm going to spend all this money, time, effort, and energy on and not get the results I'm looking for, I'd rather, just not do it at all and say that I need to think about it, or I'm too embarrassed to come clean and tell you, I know myself, man, I'm going to do it for a couple weeks and I'm going to quit. And this is why it's so important you figure those things out in prospecting. You got to uncover those behaviors in advance so that you can conditionalize them before you get to the point where you're asking for money. Because if you're uncovering that kind of challenge in the end, it's a lot of times very difficult to uncover and very difficult to overcome at that point. So that's why it's very important you're asking that stuff in the beginning and getting their commitment before they realize, or getting their commitment to a change before they are using another obstacle. The money enough and the action is going to be barrier enough. They don't need all the other stuff that they're bringing to the table with it. You got to clear that stuff out in the beginning.
Yeah. Self-belief is a huge thing.
Huge.
It's like, it seems to be the main thing. Like down deep, I don't believe that I can pull this off.
Yeah.
I'm looking at doing it,
You
but
know, a great rebuttal for that, Aaron, not to cut you off, but just to
yeah.
make sure that I want to strike while iron's hot, is that statement what you just said right there. Just
Mm.
ask that. Hey, man, I work with a lot of people that truly don't believe that they're capable or worthy of that level of success. Is that an issue for you, or how do you feel about that? And again, be honest, man, because if you're not going to be honest here, where are you going to be honest about it? You're right. Because like, who can you talk to? You can't talk to your business partners, right? Like that, for the most part. You can't talk to your employees or your team members that way. They're looking to you as a leader. You can't confide in them that way. Your spouse, not everyone's spouse is as supportive as what we have, which is awesome. But at the same time, there's just sometimes you got to figure stuff out on your own, and people feel like they have to do that all by themselves. You don't have to, man. Is that where you are right now? Is that the big issue that's holding you back, or what's really the issue? You know
Mm.
what it really is for me? Truth. And that's where we're able to work from. That's why we're saying those things, because salespeople don't ask that stuff, man. They don't want to be told no. They're taught go for yes. Never ask no based questions. tell me no, man. I'm totally okay with it. I am strong enough to overcome a no if it's the right choice for you. Or more important than that, I'm strong enough to accept the no if that's what's best for you. That's my focus, is what do you specifically need?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my posture on selling.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's awesome. Very ethical way of going about it. That's cool. That also attracted me to you big time because I follow lots of sales guys and stuff, and I'm learning as much as I'm jamming it in my head as often as
Good for
much as
you.
I can.
That's
And
awesome.
there's all sorts of tactics and things out there, and that was one of the things that attracted me to you was the ethics side of it, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, here's something that I personally face that I'm curious how you handle or what your opinion is. You're offering on the call incentive-based pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Making the decision on the call here today, we'll take off 30% or whatever.
Sure.
Typically this is 20 grand, but if you make the call here today, it's 12.
Sure.
And then they say, objection this, objection that. And then at the last moment, it's, can I get 24 hours to think about it? I know that typically means no, I'm too scared to say it and I'll never hear from you again.
Right.
How,
Do you say that?
I see that's a question I have. I have said that.
Yeah.
I have said that. I said that, in full transparency, because there's no way they're going to hear this. I said that yesterday to somebody,
They did
right?
not buy, I gather.
Did
Uh-huh.
buy,
They
did.
did buy. There you go.
I told her super direct and transparently. I said, listen, when people tell me that, it typically means no. They just
Uh-huh.
don't want to hurt my feelings, and they're just hiding from their truth.
And that's the best way to do it. Hey, my laptop's gonna run out of battery. I forgot to plug it in. Poor preparation. So we're gonna go
Nice.
for a trip, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, it's the tour of the home.
It's the tour of we're moving. We're actually out of this place this Friday. So I'm like, oh, cool. So you caught me, like, I don't have my normal office setup. You'll notice I don't have my normal
Yeah,
studio setup. It's all broken down. Actually, you can see it right here.
yeah.
There's all my equipment and everything there.
Oh yeah. There you go.
We're moving, baby. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So
Go ahead. What was she responded positively to that.
yeah. So basically, I just basically said, typically when I hear that, it's a no, and people just are kind of hiding from their own truth, kind of thing. And I said, I encourage you, if this is something you want to do, I just want you to know that you have our support, and we're here for you. I said, I typically don't let people take the offer off the phone, because that's the whole point of the incentive-based pricing. You make the decision here and now, and
Yeah.
we'll cut you a deal. If you got to call me back, then it's full price. And that's been my stance, but I just switched it up. I was like, well, I'll see. I'm testing. But I went more empathetic than
Mm-hmm.
usual.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me back 2 hours later. She said, hey, I'm in, paid in full. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's the first time. Usually I don't hear from the person.
So I have found, and this varies by salesperson. It depends on how you burn the bridge. If you give them, there are, I can't, it's hard for me to even say what I'm about to say, because it becomes an excuse for salespeople.
Mm,
So sales managers will tell folks that are trying to close, never buy or die, right? Buy now or die, right? And the reason they do that is because the percentages of follow-up calls are so small, it's not worth it typically.
yeah,
Okay.
I find that
So what
also.
happens is, if you give a salesperson permission, like people watching this right now or listening to this right now, the attitude of, oh, they can call back. See, it worked for Aaron that one time. You got to know the percentages. It's less than 10%.
Mm,
If you're really good, you can get up to 15 to 20% to people of your business that call back. Um, I have found that we close maybe about 15% that follow up and do it. It's not the norm. So it's better to get to the truth and figure out what it is right then than it is to let them go to come back to it. Now, that said, if you there's some calls, though, without going into the whole 40-minute explanation that gets to that point, that you have to believe and trust that, hey, if you're going to do it, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to set you up in the best position I possibly can for a callback, best practices kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm also not going to hold my breath waiting for that call to come back. It should be a pleasant surprise when you do call back and say, hey, I'm paid in full. It's
Yeah.
great. It feels awesome, especially when you're like, man, my goals for this week, I'm not quite there. And somebody says, hey, yeah, I've thought about it. I'm in. Great. Let's
Mm,
go. On the other side of that, I've had folks that I've worked with that I thought, man, 100%. I've shifted stuff in them in those conversations because I've coached them as well at that time frame, and they're going to, I feel confident. And I still, like, there's a couple of people I can think of to this day, years after, that I'm like, man, their life would have been so much different working with us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not to say they didn't live a good life, but I just knew that that person could have achieved the thing they wanted to achieve by working with us. And I genuinely care about them, and I want to see them have that result, but you can't force them. You gotta, let me rephrase, in my style of sales, I don't want to force folks.
Yeah,
I
no.
like letting them come to that conclusion themselves, let them find their own answers, and we just
Yeah.
happen to be there to help them make that transition.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And yeah, like I say, that's one out of literally
yeah,
the
not many.
the how many, I don't know, hundreds, right?
Yeah.
That, I'm like, oh yeah, I think to myself, sure, I'll give you. And what I usually say, if I go around, if I go like 3 or 4 objections deep and they're still at a no, okay,
Hmm.
obviously I'm going to let them off the phone.
Sure.
I'm not going to be here all day, right?
Yeah.
So okay, and then I put it on the table. Now I don't know if that's the right move, but I put it on the table. I say, you know what? I've enjoyed this conversation. If you need a bit more time to think and whatever the hell you're telling me now,
Right.
I'll leave it out there for you for 24 hours.
9 times out of 10, the I need to think about it as more of, I'm never gonna think of you again, right?
Yeah.
Like I understand what the cost of it is. I was just looking for the pricing. I'm trying to gauge what it is. And again, in prospecting, we're trying to figure out where they are. I look at folks to say, like, I price condition them in the beginning, because if I have a higher, like, we have programs that are 25,
Mm-hmm.
10, 11, $25,000 for some of our really top tier stuff. And I'm going through that, I'm price conditioning them in the beginning. I want to see what they've done before, if they've done anything similar to it in the past, because our kind of our bulk coaching, to $6,000, somewhere in that price range. Have you ever spent that kind of money on coaching before?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I won't say, hey, we charge between 3 and 6 grand. Have you ever spent that before? Because that's kind of cocky. But I will ask, have you ever done a coaching program before? Have you ever been involved with some other folks? Or what did you invest in that program? Which program was that? Oh, great program. How did it work for you? It was this, that, and the other thing. What were the limitations of it, and what did you invest into it? And then they'll give you all of that kind of guidelines and stuff, and then you'll know that if they've done it before. Buying patterns are very interesting. If they've done something before, typically they'll do it again. If they haven't done something before, that's when you know you're going to be pressed up against it, unless you can gauge the commitment and the emotional desire behind the shift, behind the desire to want to change. I know we're getting super technical. Sorry, guys. Everything's an algorithm to me. I'm trying to gauge, how committed are they to making that shift? Because,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm selling a $5,000 program or a $6,000 coaching program, let's say we could do these things for you, but it costs you 20 grand. Is it worth it? Oh, absolutely worth it. Okay, no, let me rephrase it. It costs 20 grand. Go get a credit card. Would you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd have to think, and I don't have 20 grand. Okay, that's fine, but let me give you one of my favorite money scenario kind of closes is an example of what bad salespeople do. Like, oh, I need to think about it, or I need to consult with my wife before I make that kind of decision. So when you go to the grocery store and you're buying a can of soup, do you call and consult your wife? What a dumbass,
No.
cheesy ass. I mean, come on, man. What are we doing? We're talking about a can of soup for $1.20 versus some type of life-changing 20,000. I got to go into my savings. We possibly, in some instances, in some programs, people are mortgaging their houses for these. Not in my programs, but
Mm-hmm.
in other people's programs, they're doing these things. That's not a light decision, man. And for a salesperson to diminish that kind of thing for oh God,
Yeah,
I hate
no.
bad salesmanship. So another bad example they'll give is, okay, if it's important enough to you, you'll spend the money. You'll find a way to get it done. And I tell folks, it's a bad rebuttal because of the way it's used. The right way to use it is, so let's say I'm selling something that costs 20 grand, right?
Mm. Let's jump into, let's just do a role play. You want to?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let me get my feather duster and my French maid's outfit. Oh, you mean sell? Okay, yeah, let's
Shit.
do that.
That's funny. Yeah. So okay, I'm looking at your 25K. What is it? One-on-one or
It's
one-on-many?
called, yeah, it's my executive mastermind program.
Okay, so your executive mastermind program. Um, where do you want to jump in? Where do you feel comfortable?
I don't know. You tell me what objection you get when you're getting coaching.
Yeah, good
Going to
call.
close.
Okay. So yeah, everything looks great here, Greg. I'm just looking around. I'm looking at a bunch of different programs right now.
Oof, oof. That's a prospecting issue. We're
Uh-huh.
we're at the point where I'm talking about money and you're still looking around. Like by the time I talk to somebody and before so again, my steps are prospecting, presenting, Q&A, yada yada, objection handling, closing. Um, my presentation is a to do. It's a formal like automated thing. So we prospect them and then we send them to a thing to go watch this to do. And we'll
Hmm.
close 1 in 8 people typically that we send to this thing at a higher ticket price point. Okay. Now, if they're getting into like, and again, if they're getting to the $25,000 level, I know something about them, and they're not shopping around. They're like, hey, I'm considering you. I want these things. I know you can help me. It's just I have these concerns, right? So now for that objection you're getting, if I'm getting that like preliminary prospecting question on the back end, I need to go back and look at how I'm setting these guys up on the front end to get it done. Because if it's a low dollar, like let's make it price appropriate. Like what kind of price range are we really talking about when you get that objection?
Well, it's funny you say that. I don't really get that objection very often. I just came
Okay.
off the top of my head, which is stupid. I don't
So
get
okay.
that. Now
So
that I
let's
think
back
about that, I don't get
let's back up.
that.
What objections do you get when you go
Yeah.
over the
Yeah. Good call. Okay. So yeah, let's talk price point. Let's say 5K, 6K.
Okay.
Um, Objections would be, well, of course, always, that's a lot of money. Let me
Yeah.
think about it. Like that's,
Okay.
you know,
And keep in mind, it's not mandatory to do this. Hey, Aaron, if you feel like you can go and do this thing on your own, you obviously, based on our conversation beforehand, you've been looking and evaluating several different programs. You've been looking for something, right? I mean, it seems like you're in the market to go find something to help you get to where you want to go. Is that right?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm
So
looking.
you're looking. I mean, you've heard what we do, and you seem very excited about it beforehand. Now that we've gotten to the money, you're kind of like, is it
Mm.
just a financial thing, or is it skepticism? What's really the issue?
Yeah, no, I've spent money on these types of programs before and I was let down.
Okay. Uh, that happens a lot. What other program? And then I'm not going to go through here, but what other programs have you gone to? Tell me
Hmm.
about them. People say avoid that, or a really bad objection is like, well, if you have a bad hamburger, you don't. You eat bad food at McDonald's, you don't stop eating hamburgers, right?
No,
It's a typical. I
stupid.
always throw in some country western accent because it's superior. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it's a bad example because what I want to do first is they have coaching in there and there's bad experiences mixed into that box. We got to unpack that box first. So it's why it's okay. Tell me about that. What happened? Well, this is what they did. This is what they associated with. Because right now they think coaching is this thing, and I'm offering coaching, so I'm
Mhm.
offering a similar thing, right? So I got to unpack what it is they view coaching is, and then I have to explain the differences, figure out what the issues were, separate that, and then talk about what it is we specifically do. So I went with XYZ coaching. I spent all this money. Basically, the call was this, this, and this. And I always look to what got them on the phone call to this point. Like case in point, Aaron, you and I've been talking for a bit, and you seem to really be enjoying my content. You've been taking a lot of the free stuff. You've been investing in some of my smaller materials. How have you enjoyed that? Oh, really good. Typically, oh my gosh, it's so fantastic, right? Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is
Yeah,
right. That's awesome. Your
goodness,
content's great.
that's awesome. So because of that, I often hear from folks. My goal is to go put content out there that free that is typically better than most people's paid stuff.
Mm.
And the reason I do that is because that's not even the real stuff we get to when we get into it, because that's just Mickey Mouse stuff to us. That's good stuff to have, and it's a good solid foundation. And I want you to go get results with it. When I first got started in my martial arts class in white belt, they taught us like solid techniques to defend ourselves, much better than most of the other schools. I chose that art because most of the places I went to was watered down
Mm.
training. These guys gave you real stuff like, man, if this is just really good. And I asked the instructor, I said, why do you give such good stuff right away? He says, well, you got to understand, most folks we're never going to see again. They'll come in for a month or two and then that's it. So my job is I don't sleep good at night knowing that I give you garbage technique if you go out in the street and have to use it and we never see you again. I want to make sure you can defend yourself as best as possible. So for me, I want to make sure I'm giving really good content in the material we provide so you can go get a result. So you can kind of have a fighting chance in this tough world of entrepreneurism. So because of that, that's just our entry level stuff. I wouldn't say all of that. It's just basically you enjoy the content. Yes. that stuff often is better than most of, you said yourself that
Mm.
you enjoyed that better than some of the paid trainings you had before.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. If you think that's good, man, wait till you get on the inside, because the stuff on the inside is going to completely lay everything out for you on how to go measure and grow where you're trying to get. It's not a miracle program though. All right. It's not going to solve all your issues. You got a lot of things you need work on, a lot of stuff we're not even aware of until we start working with you. But if we can show you a way to get this done so you're not risking any money at all, or that you can get it done in a way that is completely separate than what you've done before, I mean, do you really want to cause these changes? Do you really want to take your business to the next level? Now, notice I didn't say, do you really trust me?
Mm-hmm.
It's, you want to get to the next level in your life. I do. It's just that blah. And then they'll give you what my mentor taught me was the yes, but. I do, but. Okay, great. What's that? Let's draw that out. Let's fix that. So if we can fix this, is that something, I mean, is this something you really want to do? And again, Aaron, tell me it's too, tell me you don't like me. Tell me you don't trust me. Tell me you don't like my haircut. Tell me you don't trust that this is going to work for you. That's fine. Or that you don't trust yourself. That's fine. Don't tell me it's the money, because we can show you ways to get around that. And if we can, is this actually something you want to do?
Mm. Yeah, you're circling back to their need,
Yeah, and that's the
right?
only thing that matters, because
Yeah.
anything else other than that's detracting from that interest, the most important thing, which is the self-serving thing. What is it
Mm.
that you want? And if I talk about anything other than that, I'm counterselling.
Yeah, counter selling. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Taking them off the
yeah,
path.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I think I've taken about enough time in your day here today. I don't want to keep you too long.
We'll make this a 4-day workshop, right?
No doubt, right? I love it. I mean, I could talk sales, just like you, like literally all day, every day. It's so interesting, the psychology and everything. It's absolutely awesome.
You know, what's fun for me, Aaron, is that you hear the old story of I forgot half the stuff I know. I've done so much sales, and a lot of sales is kind of situational for most folks. They're causing their own objections, their own issues in sales.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I've done it. I've been through that. I've gone through that entire experience personally, and I've learned. Oh, okay, it's kind of like the Jeet Kune Do of sales, where it's like you learn all this stuff, and then you strip most of it away to find the center line that is the truth of what you're doing. I've never studied Jeet Kune Do, but I love my man Bruce.
Yeah.
So that said, sales is very, you do all this stuff, you compensate with certain things and lines and selling techniques over the years until you get good enough, you realize, oh, I was doing that to myself the entire time. If I fix
Mm,
this up front, or if I change my behavior here, or my belief, or my tone, or just the way I communicate on the front end, a lot of that stuff kind of sloughs off. So I'm been, doing the straight line kind of Jeet Kune Do style worth of sales. People ask all the time, what do you say when you get this? What do you say when you get that? I just don't get those objections, because I don't cause those objections.
mm,
So when people tell me this is what I'm going through, I can give them the answer in the moment for that thing to help fix. But instead, why don't we go, by working with us, why don't we go eliminate it altogether so you don't run into that ever again? Wouldn't that be better?
yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't
Wouldn't
that
that
be
be better?
faster? Yeah. Okay. Would
Don't
that,
you?
and I don't actually like that. Would that be better? Yeah, it would be. Okay, great. Because now it feels like you came up with the idea. Good.
Yeah.
Well, here's how we take the next step. This is the next thing we'd have for you to be
Yeah.
able to take a look at that to cause that.
Love it. Everything. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. Cool, man. All right. Well, dropping my brain. I got a whole page of notes here.
Glad.
Absolutely amazing. I love it, man. It's awesome. So for the listeners who are curious about what you're up to, getting into your coaching, learning some sales, and just everything else that you have to offer, which is the whole deal, where can they
Mhm.
find you?
You can reach me at faststartmarketer.com. Right now, we're on a big push for YouTube. I'm going to start doing some live prospecting dials once we reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm doing nothing paid to driving subscribers to this. This is all organic stuff. We're testing out YouTube as a platform. We have Facebook. You can go find us on Facebook at faststartmarketer.com. We'll respond to all that stuff. But the best place is go to YouTube or Facebook, and just do facebook.com/faststartmarketer or youtube.com/faststartmarketer. Get on there, connect, send me a note. Let me know that you came from Aaron, so I know what to reference and what you're looking for, and my team will be happy to get in contact with us. And we have all kinds of different things. I don't know what's appropriate. One thing that you came in off of is one of our excited prospect formula. I think that's a good core kind of foundation psychology thing. We can direct you to that if that's important to them for when they get there. But go find us on the social medias first, and we'll push you from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. All right, man. Thanks so much for being on the Growth Podcast. I appreciate it.
No problem. Take care. Thanks, man.